What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today we are adding some new fish and coral to the Dream Reef tank. So make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. As always, check out those links in the description and make sure to check out our sponsors, Star Fisheries if you're from the UK and Jimmy Goldfish USA if you are from the US. So today we are finally going to be adding a couple of fish to the Dream Reef tank, which is right behind you guys, and we're also going to be adding a few corals as well. The reef tank is starting to mature, the algae are starting to grow, and the corals seem to be doing well, so it's time to add a little bit of life to the tank, and then slowly we're going to keep adding and adding as the months go by. So I'm going to swing the camera around and we can see what we have. So as I mentioned in the intro, today is new fish day. We've got a few new fish going into the tank. Because the tank is still very young and it's not that mature, I'm only going to be adding a couple of fish today, and then maybe in around a month or so, maybe longer, I'll start to add more fish, and we'll slowly add it until we've got all of our fish finally stocked in the aquarium. As you'll see, this is a big tank, so 2 fish isn't really going to have much of an impact, but we've got to start somewhere, and I don't really want to put loads of fish in at once. I want to see how they get on in the tank first. So once the fish are in, then we have a bit of food going into the water and a bit of food going around the tank. So then I can add more cleanup crew, which will deal with all the waste. If I add the cleanup crew in now, they won't really have that much to eat. There is obviously different algae for them to eat and graze on the rocks, but they need sort of a bit of meaty foods, some of the conches that I want to add, or the different types of snails and crabs and hermit crabs, etc. But we're going to get onto that further in another video. So right now I'm going to get the fish in the bag and try and show you on camera what they look like, and then we can get them acclimated and in the tank. So first of all, let me show you what corals I've got. You're not really going to be able to see too well, but I've got some mushroom corals here, so I'm just going to place these on top of the tank. Generally, as I mentioned before, for corals, I just like to temperature acclimate them, and potentially for the fish I will as well. You can make sure you've got the correct salinity for the fish, but I wouldn't bother drip acclimating fish, maybe only the inverts I would drip acclimate. So this is another type of soft coral, hopefully you can see on camera. They don't look like too much, and it's really hard to get them on film, but in the tank they do look amazing. I've got a Colt's coral here, which is another soft coral, and there's about 3 pieces in here. These are actually from another reefer, and I did a little sort of coral swap to get these. So I've got some zoas or zoanthids on there, and then I've got some more zoas, and this absolutely huge devil's finger or devil's hand coral. So this coral looks sort of like a big bit of brown jelly, but in fact it's actually a really big green soft coral with blue polyps, I think, or it might be a blue soft coral with green polyps, one or the other. But that's going to look absolutely awesome, and I need to find a really good spot for it. And then finally we'll get onto the fish. So first we've got this absolutely lovely yellow wrasse, commonly known as a banana wrasse or a chorus wrasse. Even though it is not from the chorus wrasse family, it's actually from the Haliochorus, I believe it's called Haliochorus wrasse. But so that's an absolutely lovely fish, and that is going to be the first one going into the tank. As you can hopefully see, it's got some beautiful face markings and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And then next up we have this twisty wrasse. This is from the Anampsis family, so this is an Anampsis twisty, and this is an absolutely beautiful fish as well going into the tank. So right now for the fish, I'm going to let them acclimate for, I'd say, around 20 minutes. They're pretty similar temperatures to the tank anyway, and then we'll release them into the water. Now, for those of you who said, why aren't you quarantining your corals or your fish? There is a few different reasons. Firstly, now corals could have some different pests on them which could go into the tank. This tank actually is going to be a wrasse only tank, and wrasse absolutely love to eat pests like flatworms, so the tank should stay pretty clear of any pests. I will inspect all of the corals to make sure there is no pests on them, and I'll visually inspect them. And then the fish, these fish have been in a reefer's tank for around a year, I believe, so they should be pretty hardy in the aquarium, and hopefully they haven't got any pathogens on them. I could quarantine them, but I would need a whole new setup, whole separate setup, and generally I find that the marine fish are quite a lot more sensitive than our goldfish, and if you're putting them in a small quarantine tank with really sterile environment, that's not what they're used to. They are pretty much on the whole wild fish, so I don't really want to stress them out too much, and I'm actually just going to take the risk by putting them into my tank. Now, if you want to minimize the impact of potential pathogens coming into your tank, you could add a UV sterilizer onto it, and you can also do hyposalinity, where you lower the salinity down, or add medications. Now with the corals, we can't add like any medications. I think there's only a few on the market that you can add to deal with pathogens and parasites. However, they don't work that well. I haven't had any positive experience with them working. So we're going to take the risk. Not what I'd usually advocate, but because this is a slightly different system to our tropical or our goldfish, there is quite a lot more elements to it, and that hence why I'm not going to be quarantining these fish. So I'm going to get all of these corals acclimated, get them in the tank, and then we can have a little video of the fish being released and talk about them a little bit more. Here you can see me starting to undo the bags. So when acclimating marine fish, it is always really important to make sure you match the salinity. Now I know the salinity that the fish came from was between 1.025 and 1.026, which is the exact same of my tank. So generally I'm just going to acclimate these fish to temperature. They have been in captivity for 12 months already, as I mentioned, so they haven't been taken straight from the wild, so they are used to the aquarium conditions already. I personally find drip acclimating or slowly adding water to the bag can potentially stress the fish out much further, and as the salinity is the same as the bag and the tank, there is not going to be any osmotic shock to the fish. I'm going to add a little bit of tank water to the bags just so the fish have that slight difference and can sort of balance in the different levels of calcium, magnesium, carbonate hardness, etc. And then after that, I'm going to release them into the tank. Ordinarily, if you're buying your fish from a shop, you should not add the water in the bag to the tank. Now, although these fish have only been in the bag for an hour or so, so there is only a little bit potentially of ammonia built up in the system. So I'm going to add that straight into the tank as it is such a large system. On a small system, you probably don't want to do this. And as I mentioned, if you're buying them from a shop, there is a high chance that the fish have been in some kind of medication, and you definitely don't want to be adding that to your reef tank. But as I know that these fish have come from a reef tank already, there is no chance of medication in the water, so I don't mind adding the water from the bag to the tank. Obviously there is the potential risk of pathogens, but I already outlined that, so I've just added a little bit of the tank water to the tank, and then I'm going to release the fish into the system, and then we can have a little close-up look at them. So as with most acclimations, I try to do it as quickly and as safely as possible. I really find doing long acclimations can often stress the fish much more and cause more issues rather than just getting them into the system. Obviously, we don't want to rush this process, but it is better to do it in a timely manner, so to say. So now the fish are into the tank, we can get a little close-up of them. Absolutely great colours on these. I love the standout yellow of the banana wrasse, and the colours on the twisty wrasse are quite hard to see with the camera, but I'm so happy that they are finally in the tank and into their new home. So I hope you have enjoyed that video. I know it wasn't fancy goldfish related, and I'm trying to throw a little bit of the marine stuff and a little bit of the aquarium stuff into the channel videos as well, alongside the fancy goldfish content. But if you want to see more fancy goldfish content, you can always leave a little comment down below and let me know if there's any videos you want to see in particular, or anything you want me to narrate or talk about. So that is it for today's video. If you want to have your fancy goldfish tank or setup featured on the channel, then pop me a comment down below or email me at fancygoldfishfanatics@gmail.com and we can get it on the channel for you. Thank you if you made it to the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.